Hello everyone, my name is Alana. Welcome to my channel. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And give this video a like. Sheldon Season 6 indicates that George gives Sheldon's most disgusting characteristic on The Big Bang Theory, despite their strained relationship and the fact that they have very few things in common. In The Big Bang Theory, Sheldon has little positive to say about his father. It's simple to conclude that the Cooper patriarch was a careless dad when combined with Mary's unfavorable stories. Although young Sheldon has persisted in defying that assumption, it does occasionally draw attention to some of the character's flaws. Over the course of its existence, young Sheldon has produced numerous TBD story flaws. Though it's worse for George, its conflicting portrayals of the Cooper family are arguably its most obvious narrative discrepancy. His character is initially developed through other people's descriptions of him because he never makes an appearance in The Big Bang Theory. Season 6 shows a darker side that suggests he instills Sheldon's most disgusting The Big Bang Theory feature, despite young Sheldon's tendency to soften George's image. Related, young Sheldon deepens the plot hole in The Big Bang Theory finale for the Nobel Prize. Mary and Pastor Rob are practically cut off as a result of Mary's dismissal from the church. But soon after, Medford High School, where George coaches, recruits Pastor Rob to serve as the team's spiritual counselor. Sheldon's father is understandably irritated by this, particularly given the team's success in the Young Sheldon Season 6 winter premiere is attributed to Pastor Rob. George demonstrates his cunning side in retaliation by orchestrating Pastor Rob's failure and damaging his reputation. When Sheldon wants to illustrate a point, like his father does with Pastor Rob, this cunning approach is reminiscent of Sheldon's ploys on The Big Bang Theory. As demonstrated in Young Sheldon, Sheldon is conscious of his lack of social and emotional intelligence, and feels that he will never be able to build a trustworthy social circle, much less find a spouse with whom to marry and start a family. Being cunning is maybe the most disgusting of all his flaws because he has no problem putting his pals through it. He even disparages Amy's love of Christmas at one point. At first, he seems to be friendly with her, but in reality, he wants to spoil the holiday for her. It is more impressive that Sheldon's pals put up with him because of this. Young Sheldon always feels a stronger connection to his mother, even as he continues to examine his relationship with his father. The boy genius likes Mary's propensity to pamper him. It's becoming obvious that they are the source of his worst qualities. In addition to George's cunning, Young Sheldon Season 4 already makes clear that Mary, who has a tendency to be conceited, is the source of Sheldon's selfishness. Like Sheldon usually is on The Big Bang Theory, she seems to think highly of herself in young Sheldon's time, implying that she is the only one who manages to keep her home and work lives together. Young Sheldon's George gave Sheldon his most repulsive TBT trait, and you won't believe how. Young Sheldon, the hit prequel to The Big Bang Theory, has been shedding light on the quirky childhood of one of TV's most beloved geniuses, Sheldon Cooper. The series dives deep into Sheldon's early years, exploring his social awkwardness, his over-the-top intellect, and his struggle to fit into a world that doesn't quite understand him. But what if we told you that one of Sheldon's most infuriating traits, the one that fans love to hate, was actually passed down to him from his father, George Cooper Sr.? Yes, you heard that right. George Cooper, the rough-around-the-edges Texas father, may have unknowingly been the source of Sheldon's most repulsive habit. So buckle up, because what you're about to find out will change the way you look at both young Sheldon and The Big Bang Theory forever. The origin of Sheldon's most infamous trait. When fans think of Sheldon Cooper, certain traits immediately come to mind. His inability to grasp social norms, his overwhelming need for routine, and of course, his self-righteous attitude. But it's his tendency to engage in obnoxious and unsolicited commentary that really drives people up the wall. Whether it's correcting someone on their grammar, explaining the most basic of concepts in a condescending tone, or simply treating others as if they're beneath him, Sheldon's judgmental, superior attitude is perhaps the most irksome aspect of his character. But guess what? That behavior didn't just appear out of nowhere. In fact, young Sheldon reveals that it's not all Sheldon's fault. The root cause of this personality flaw can actually be traced directly back to his father. Unlikely connection between George and Sheldon's superior attitude. In young Sheldon, George may seem like a no-nonsense, blue-collar dad just trying to keep his family afloat. However, there's something else lurking beneath the surface of George's character, something that links directly to Sheldon's smug, know-it-all demeanor in The Big Bang Theory. In the earlier seasons of young Sheldon, we see George exhibiting a form of toxic masculinity, marked by his rough exterior and his tendency to belittle others, especially when it comes to dealing with his son's extreme intelligence. While George is generally supportive, he frequently expresses frustration with Sheldon's incessant need to be right all the time. However, there's one key thing about George that mirrors Sheldon's most problematic trait: his tendency to make judgments about people, even when he doesn't fully understand them. Now, hold on, this is where it gets interesting. George isn't exactly an intellectual powerhouse like Sheldon, but the more we see him interact with the world, especially in his relationship with Sheldon, the more we see that he has a deep-rooted need to establish dominance. Whether it's making fun of his son's social awkwardness or belittling people he doesn't think are up to his level, George's need to assert superiority lays the groundwork for Sheldon's own future behavior. You may remember a scene in young Sheldon where George mocks Sheldon's attempt to explain a scientific theory in front of his family, rolling his eyes and downplaying the importance of it. This moment of dismissive behavior, while minor, is emblematic of how George, in his own way, sets the stage for Sheldon's arrogant tendencies later on. George's inadvertent influence on Sheldon's social struggles. If we're being honest, Sheldon's ability to alienate people in The Big Bang Theory often stems from his overwhelming arrogance and his need to constantly one-up everyone around him. This could be traced back to a childhood where Sheldon learned the value of intellectual superiority through his interactions with his father, George. Though George might not have meant to shape Sheldon into this self-absorbed know-it-all, his dismissive attitude towards anything that didn't align with his own worldview served as a blueprint for Sheldon's social ineptitude later in life. In a family dynamic where Sheldon was the intellectual outlier, George's reaction to Sheldon's genius was to belittle or undermine it, rather than support it in a healthy way. And this subtle, yet significant, lack of validation from his father turned into a warped need for Sheldon to assert his superiority at all costs in adulthood. As much as Sheldon's mother, Mary, tried to nurture his genius, George's less-than-ideal parenting inadvertently taught Sheldon the wrong lessons about how to interact with people. Sheldon, unable to grasp the nuance of human interaction, became fixated on winning conversations rather than engaging in true dialogue. Sheldon's relationship with George, a study in dysfunctional father-son dynamics. Let's not forget about the pivotal moments in young Sheldon that showcase the less-than-ideal father-son dynamic between George and Sheldon. There are multiple instances where George lashes out in frustration at Sheldon's inability to understand basic social cues. However, these moments often end with George showing signs of regret, acknowledging that he hasn't been the perfect dad. This back and forth creates a dynamic where Sheldon's behavior becomes a product of both his environment and his own social struggles. In a memorable scene from young Sheldon, George tells Sheldon that he doesn't have to be so smart all the time, implying that it's okay to let others take the lead or make mistakes. Unfortunately, Sheldon, as a child prodigy, is wired to see the world through an intensely logical lens, and he struggles to take his father's advice. This moment highlights a crucial problem. Sheldon, when faced with criticism or a moment of self-doubt, doesn't know how to let go of his intellectual superiority because it's been ingrained in him by his father's somewhat toxic behavior. Sheldon's greatest burden. Inherited traits from Big Bang Theory know, Sheldon's life is an endless battle between his desire to be superior and his lack of understanding about how to engage with others in a meaningful, empathetic way. And while it's easy to place all the blame on Sheldon's isolated upbringing or his extreme intelligence, we must acknowledge the profound role that his father George played in shaping the man Sheldon would eventually become. George's inability to nurture Sheldon's unique genius in a way that would allow for emotional growth and social understanding set Sheldon up for a lifetime of awkward interactions and condescending behavior. As much as we love Sheldon's quirks, we must recognize that his most repulsive trait, the constant need to correct and belittle those around him, can be traced back to the complicated relationship he had with his father. Conclusion: the true legacy of George Cooper Sr. So there you have it. Young Sheldon's George didn't just shape his son's worldview through his actions as a father. He gave Sheldon one of the most annoying, self-destructive traits in the Big Bang Theory, his condescending, know-it-all attitude. While George never meant for it to happen, his flawed parenting left an indelible mark on Sheldon's psyche. This fascinating backstory not only deepens our understanding of Sheldon's character, but also gives us a glimpse into the generational dynamics that influence who we become. As we continue to watch young Sheldon and reflect on the Big Bang Theory, it's hard not to think about how much of Sheldon's personality was shaped by the world around him, especially his relationship with his father. And if there's one thing we've learned from this revelation, it's that sometimes the most annoying traits can be passed down in the most unexpected ways. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay with us.